Let's begin with a word of prayer. Father, we give you glory because you are God and you are in charge of all things. You are our creator. You are our king. You are our savior. And so we come before you today, Father, seeking to know you better and to know how to glorify you in all that we do in this world so that we can do as the Apostle Paul said, Father, and just make our lives living sacrifices in everything that we do. So today as we gather, Father, help us to have our minds renewed, to strengthen those things that are right and to correct those things that may be wrong and work on that in each one of us, Father. Give us hearts of humility and just this desire to learn and to grow in your image. Lord, we pray this in Jesus' name. Amen. Okay, today I want to start with something. I had a couple topics I want to talk about, but then I realized maybe we need to talk a little bit about posture for learning, especially in today's world. I have a very bad habit. I have what do I call it? I like to argue. It has always been one of those things that has certainly gotten me in trouble, but I've also learned that as we live in this world today, especially with social media and with all of these things, that all of these platforms, which are, I believe, good tools, are also areas where the worst of us can come out, and also where we can take the worst into us. And so it's very important that we learn how to utilize these tools, how to posture ourselves, even be more self-aware about what it is that we're doing, because at the end of the day, we are each responsible for what it is that we put into our bodies and into our minds, right? And we're responsible for how it is that we interpret it and how it is that we apply it. So if you will, turn in your Bibles to Proverbs chapter 18. We're going to be kind of picking out of that today. And there's just a few things out of there that I want us to talk about, just to set the pace here. In Proverbs 18, beginning in verse 1, it says, "The one who lives alone is self-indulgent, showing contempt for all who have sound judgment. A fool takes no pleasure in understanding, but only in expressing personal opinion." When I read this yesterday, it really struck me. I thought, oh my goodness, this describes a lot of how I feel, how I act, and a lot of what I believe I see in this world. So what do you think he's talking about when he says, the one who lives alone is self-indulgent? What does that mean, to live alone and be self-indulgent? Okay, a selfish person. What else? One who does not live in community, right? Okay, and these actually go together. So if I don't live in community, what happens? Let's take, for example, and this is a generalization, so I'm not trying to pick on any of you who may be or have them, but let's talk about the single child versus the child who's raised with 4 siblings or such, okay? What usually kind of 2 different things do you see? Like we say single child, what do you think of? Okay, brat. And that's maybe right? That's a broad brush. It's kind of maybe an unfair generalization, but we're all thinking it, right? We're all kind of there. Why, though? Why do we say that? They're the only one. They don't have to share. It can be spoiling to do this, right? But when you live in community, when you have others, what are you forced to do? You're forced to share. You're forced to learn how to live with each other, to work with each other. Now, here's the thing. We were all made to be in community. But what happens, and what I want us to kind of draw out of this is when the author writes about this in Proverbs, and says, this person who lives alone is self-indulgent, showing contempt for all who have sound judgment, is saying, I'm by myself. I don't need to hear your opinion. I know my opinion. I've become my own thoughts. I've come in it, and I haven't learned how to listen to other voices. And as such, my voice should be the only one that matters, and I don't understand why others would speak into my life. And this becomes a lot of how we are even today, especially in the world that we have with social media. Right? Because in social media, I don't have to interact with a person. I interact with the screen. I'm by myself. I'm on my phone. And so I dehumanize immediately the other person of this dialogue, and as such, it's just me. And when I do that, and when I'm engaged, say, looking on the internet or whatever, it's just me and a machine, whether it be artificial intelligence, whether it be a database, whatever it is, it's me and this other thing, and I look for the things that fit me. So I don't have community to speak into me, to teach me how to hear and process and recognize that other voices around me exist that are just as real and just as valid as my voice. And so we all begin to suffer with this kind of only child syndrome. And maybe that's, there's only children are going to yell at me. So that's a horrible way to put it, Pastor. And maybe that's kind of an unfair way to put it. But does that make sense, what I'm trying to say here? So being alone means not having outside voices speak into our lives. And when we don't have outside voices speak into our lives, what happens? What happens to you if you don't have outside new voices speak into your life? Okay, there's no one to point out the blind spots. What else? That's really good. No checks and balances. You have to talk to yourself, right? Do what? You become lonely. Yeah, loneliness. I become emotionally unaware. And think about that even. Like, so an in-person meeting, right? Like this is kind of the best connection we can get with other people. Then a Zoom, which really loses a bunch of that, but even less if we have just interaction on script or whatever, and we're not even looking at a face or when we turn them off. And so while we have these different platforms that can be beneficial, we have to be mindful of missing this thing also, of missing interaction and better understanding each other. But this part right here specifically, what it's saying to us is, look, if I don't have outside voices speaking into my life, and what I mean by that is not just outside voices like me personally, but let's say, okay, I'm here in the house, this is me. Well, I like I like spaghetti. I've never tried other foods. That's all I want to eat. Somebody comes over to come live with me, and I find out that this person wants to eat tacos, and I'm like, bro, I don't do that. I only do spaghetti. Never tried that. Don't want anything to do with it. Heard bad things about them. Tacos are horrible. You need to leave. And so I look for a roommate who eats only spaghetti, right? Like I pull out the whole Sheldon list of stuff, right? Of who my roommate can be and how to be there. And if I have only those people living in me, what's going to happen to my palate of eating? It's just going to be spaghetti. I only have those same things inside or feeding back at me. Yes, I like spaghetti. I like spaghetti. I like spaghetti. The same thing happens with information. And when we don't allow outside voices that are different than ours to speak into our lives, what happens is our thought process becomes incestual and our thoughts become anemic. This is why, for example, when I started going to graduate school in the church, many of the leaders in the church suggested that I go outside of the Nazarene denomination, especially if I wanted to teach in the church. I thought, well, that's stupid. Why would I go outside the Nazarene denomination if I want to teach in the Nazarene denomination? They said, because if everybody inside the Nazarene church only goes to Nazarene facilities to learn Nazarene stuff, then we only learn here, and our theology, our growth becomes very incestual. It's just us. It doesn't expand. It doesn't have all this outside stuff to strengthen the genetics of who we are. And it's important to have outside voices speak into it so we can learn from it. So we as a people also need to be open to hear outside voices that are very different from ours. As parents, we tell our kids, just try this, just try this. I don't want to try it. I don't want to try them. Like, how do you know you're not going to? I just know I'm not going to like it. Like Isaac, if it's green, I don't like it. That was his rule. I thought, oh my goodness, I'm going to beat you, boy. Right? Like we've all been there. You have to try these things and even maybe develop a taste for certain things. Otherwise, your process becomes incestual and it becomes anemic. It lacks the strength that it needs. And this makes us very vulnerable to confirmation bias. And this is one of the things that I really want to focus on. Confirmation bias is simply our tendency to listen mostly to information that confirms our existing belief. Right? That's confirmation bias. To me, that's one of the biggest issues that we have today. Why is confirmation bias a problem? Why would you think confirmation bias would be a problem today?
We're not right. Everybody has something.
Melissa nailed it. Because we're not right. What? That's right. Your thinking, my thinking is not exactly right. We have to understand that. Go ahead, Mark. What if mine is, yeah. Mine's right, mine's perfect. No, it's right, we know we're not. And we have to walk into that my thought process isn't exactly right. And what confirmation bias is, it becomes this thing where I am going to listen to things and believe things that affirm what I already believe a lot quicker than things that don't affirm what I believe, right? Dan? I think one of the ways to look at it also is going back to the analogy of the spaghetti. It'd be like one thing if I say, okay, I only eat spaghetti. Bro, you need to try some tacos. Okay, someone probably needs to try something else. Now, I don't want to try tacos. But what if someone came into my house instead and I said, yeah, I am open to listening to other stuff. It seems reasonable to come into my house and say, hey, I want you to eat this arsenic. Well, I'm not going to eat arsenic because I know arsenic is poison. Well, try it. You haven't tried it. How do you know it's going to kill you if you haven't tried it, right? Like, don't try it because I know it's going to kill you. I'm not going to try it. That's like would be listening to the heathen, right? Like, I don't need to hear that to know that it's wrong. But imagine here, and here's what happens today, is then somebody says, I don't like tacos, and I don't want people to like tacos. So I'm going to tell you, you spaghetti lovers out there, tacos are made from arsenic. Tacos are going to kill you like arsenic will if you eat it. Well, I'm not going to eat tacos. No, it's ridiculous, right? But that is kind of the mentality that we have. And think about it in some of the things we have. I'm never going to listen to, for example, liberal media. How many of you hear that say, well, I'm not going to because they're bad? Okay, that concept, that mentality in your head is the same mentality as I'm never going to eat a taco because there's arsenic. It's ridiculous, right? It's as ridiculous saying that I'm never going to listen to Fox News because all it has is this. It's bad also. That's like saying a taco is made from arsenic. It's not. It's ridiculous. But this is what the world has done, is it's confused us to say, here's the thing. You need to have discernment about certain voices that are just bad. I don't need to hear about why pornography is a good idea. I don't need to hear about why arsenic is a good food. I don't need to have those conversations. However, when someone comes to me and says, hey, maybe we should have a conversation about this thing that's affecting me, but I don't want to, like eating tacos, I need to ask myself, is this really about tacos or is it about arsenic? And this is the area where we really struggle today. And so we create these huge gaps and we create echo chambers that we see today. Here's some examples of seeing that we're in confirmation bias, like only choosing to follow those who share your viewpoints. Go on there, and I challenge you guys to go onto your, like, if you have social media, go look at your Facebook. Go look at your group of friends and stuff, the things that pop up. I mean, do you have a lot of people on here who are friends of you who have very different ideas than yours? Probably not, right? Most people don't. Most people's social media is filled up with people who believe exactly like them. When they don't like them, what happens? Well, I don't like the way this is anymore. They're getting too much on that side over there, so I'm going to leave them, and I'm going to go to this platform that only has people that talk like me. And so we go into echo chambers. Royal, and then Leanne? Yeah, absolutely. And it is important to make sure we still this. So here's the other aspect of this, kind of speaking to what Leanne just said. The other mentality that we often have is, well, it's a dichotomy. So if you want me to do that, then I can't look at this. Absolutely not. Like, it's not one or the other. I can eat my tacos and try spaghetti. Or I can have my spaghetti and try tacos and decide I don't like them and try different things, like a taquito. Whoa! Or a chimichanga. Everybody loves chimichangas, right? And if you don't, there is something wrong with you. That's just fact, not even opinion, right? No, so it is this matter of, here's my foundational thing, though. And this is why we do it. I study outside points because I believe that this is so important that I need those other things to strengthen it. And all those things are to strengthen my foundational aspect of who I am. And many times in the church, we're so afraid of, well, if I send my kids to public schools, then God's not there, and I don't want to send them to that kind of thing. Well, that's not true, right? Like I told people when Sienna first started going to school, they tried talking me into homeschool. First off, I don't want to homeschool. I have no patience for kids, and neither does Trina. So for my kids' personal safety and health and mental health, we didn't do that. And thank you. You're welcome, by the way, children, for not making you homeschool, because we're not capable of that. But the other thing was this. I was like, look, if there's no God in school, then I need to send my daughter. Because she's going to take Jesus with her. Right? She's going to go there, she's going to do that, and she's going to test it, and she's going to do all these things, and it's going to help her. I have enough confidence in my faith and in God that they can do the Pepsi challenge. I'm not afraid to look into things because I believe that if this is true, then all that's going to do is affirm this, or I'm going to be able to logic and reason recognize that that thing is wrong. And if it isn't wrong, then I need to change, because at the end of the day, what I'm looking for is truth over anything, right? So we need to make sure that we're willing to be open on our foundational stuff. Choosing news sources that present stories that support your views. Oh my goodness, this is a big one. And I don't watch a whole lot of news anyway, but when I do, I try to mix it up. I try to kind of go bounce around a little bit and hear what everybody has to say, because I recognize that they're all kind of doing their own thing, but somewhere in there is the commonality of it. Like yesterday, I was so sad Chandler Bing died. I was really sad, right? So I'm looking right here, all the stories, but there's a main part that's kind of central, right? That Matthew Perry drowned yesterday. That's all the facts that we have so far. Okay, so we look into those, but we can look into these other viewpoints to recognize how they are. The same thing with Bible translations. I recommend to people read as many different translations as you can. Why? Because a translation is never perfect. And they're trying to convey either an idea or word, but if you read different translations, then in there you see, oh, here was the idea. It's right here. We don't have a word for it. So these guys all went around it. And by going around it, I can better center what it is that they're trying to say. Refusing to listen to opposing views. I don't even want to hear it. We're not going to talk about that. This is a big one in the church that bothered me. I had a friend who did a youth camp went to youth camp at the Arizona district, and this was a lot of years ago. But he said they had a speaker there, and the speaker took on questions, and the youth said, hey, can you talk to us a little bit about the LGBTQ situation? And the guy says, no, that's a stupid question. We will never have that conversation. We know what's right. We know what's wrong. And that was the end of that. And I thought, oh my goodness, right? Like, why would you do that? Like, yes, I know what's right. I know what's wrong, but we need to have a conversation. Are you so afraid of it? Because when you refuse to listen to opposing views, and I don't mean like go ahead and say it and I'm going to sit here all, like I did with my mom, was like, just be quiet, let me talk. Fine, talk. But I'm not listening, right? Listening means I'm absorbing and considering everything that you're saying, and I'm even asking questions for clarification. If someone says something to you and you don't ask genuine questions for clarification, you're probably not listening, right? You're just fine, say your piece, I'm going to say mine. That's a debate. Yeah, and we shut things down when we don't listen. Yeah, and so I don't want to hear it. I don't want to know that, so I'm here. And the reason we do that is because I don't want to be challenged. I don't want to deal with this. I don't want that. I've been told that you're the enemy. I need to put a wall up and just keep you out. And when we do this, when we put a giant wall up, we don't consider all the facts in a logical and reasonable manner. And there are always a lot of facts to what's happening. Things that we don't know in any situation. There was a crash out here the other day. I guarantee you when the police came by, they asked more than one person what happened. Because even the people who were in it saw different things. There are different perspectives, there's different facts, and we need to be willing to accept those facts, take them in, and put that all together logically and say, here is what's really happening. Here's what I genuinely see, and apply those facts. But confirmation bias doesn't allow us to do that. And it's even more difficult today. I want to say this, but I'm not trying to insult. But I'm just trying to be honest. The baby boomer generation especially, and Generation X, we are the worst. We have come into this world, right? We're pre-internet. We remember a time when dial-up went, right? All the noise and everything, right? Even before that, when that wasn't even a thing. Okay? Because of that, all of a sudden we got inundated with this thing, this internet, and this way of having information and platforms like Google and Facebook and all this stuff. And when that happened, we were not, any of us in any of our lives, educated on how to handle that information. And so we applied the old school rules to that information. And because of that, so many boomers and Gen Xers are information illiterate. We don't know how to handle that information, and we believe the most ridiculous things. We don't understand how it works. This is why I asked some of you, how many of you actually were able to watch The Social Dilemma? No worries. And if you can't, go watch it somewhere. It's really, really good. I was actually thinking maybe I ought to show it here sometime. It has nothing to do with church, but it's really important because it shows how these things work. Like, everybody recognizes that Facebook and all them, they're out there for profit, right? You know that, right? That this isn't some, okay. Now, and kind of the big point of the social dilemma is they say, well, what is the product that we're selling? How many of you know what the product is that Facebook is selling? Us. You are the product. You, 100% are the product that they're selling. Every time you go on there, every time you do anything on anything, you go on your computer and Google. Google does the same thing, all of them, and it's no big deal. They recognize patterns. They know what you like. So if I keep typing on there, hey, I want to, so for example, I look up Davy Jones. Who is Davy Jones? The next day I go on there, I might get something for pirates, and I might get something for the monkeys, right? And then I go on there, and then I type something about, hey, I love 70s and 80s TV shows. All of a sudden, when I go on there, all of a sudden, I'm going to get things that pop up that are more focused on the monkeys, TV shows, and I'm going to get a video song recommendations. Here we come, walking down the street. Da-da-da-da-da. We get the strangest looks with everyone we see. Everybody, hey, we're the monkeys. People say we monkey around. Hey, come on, man. I love the monkeys. And the kids are like, what in the world? Okay, here's what it does. It shows you what it thinks you already want to see. Now, that's wonderful for advertising, and I get it. I like it. If I'm looking for a new truck, all of a sudden, bam, I get all kinds of stuff that pops up there. In fact, now just saying this, I guarantee you that I'm going to, on my Google, because they're listening, right? I am going to get advertisements on the monkeys and on new trucks, right? It's going to happen. Because I'm loud. Everyone's going to get it. So you're welcome for that, okay? Jim.
That sounds like a little bit of confirmation bias.
Yeah, it's exactly what it is. It's confirmation bias. Chris? Exactly. And so this is huge. Like the Target thing that happened, like I heard about that, and it's awesome that, it was managing predict people were getting pregnant before they were pregnant and offering advertisements to them. Now, this is wonderful. If my idea is to sell you something, it's great. Because you'd be like, I don't need a baby bassinet. Bam, I'm pregnant. Hey, you know what? I just saw an advertisement for that just a minute ago on my Facebook. Let me pull it up. Right? Okay, so that's brilliant, and that works out. Now, here's the other thing to consider. That was 2007. Do you guys know what Moore's Law is? Moore's Law was a law that was foundational to hardware and software, I want to say in the 60s or 70s, where they discovered that the speed of our processors doubles about every 18 months. And so because of that, software engineers said, I've created this program. The problem is we don't have anything fast enough to run it. They would start creating programs that say, hey, this won't be ready to go. We don't have anything yet, but we know how fast processors will be here. And so it'll land at the same time. And so we started syncing up our software complexity with the hardware, knowing where it's going to at. Now, when you double things and it's really slow, like in the old days when computers took up big old rooms, it takes a little bit, but we're at the point now where 2007 to today, I would argue, and I'm kind of just pulling this based on what I see, 2007 to today, that's 6 years? 6 years, 16 years, right? 16 years, is that right? About 16 years is? Okay, so 16 years, I would argue, is the difference technologically from 1960 to 1999, right? Like that's a huge amount of difference. Like huge difference in where we are at and what we understand we're able to do. So these things do this. Now, that's the advertising part of it. Here's the part that I want you to focus on and understand. This is the part that we miss. Like everybody gets it. Okay, they're trying to sell me something. They're showing me ads that fits my context. We've always done that, right? When I would watch Saturday morning cartoons, what commercials were on Saturday morning cartoons, right? Yeah, it was cereal and it was He-Man cartoons and it was all of this stuff, right? But when I would stay home from school and I had to watch Days of Our Lives with my mom, and I want to say that it was bad, but I did become addicted, like sands through the hourglass. So are the days of our lives. All right? Yeah, the wasted days of our lives. Right? What are the commercials there? Calgon. Oh, take me away. Calgon, take me away. Now, why Calgon? How many guys here love Calgon? Like, we don't care, but why? Because they're marketing, saying, here's who's watching this. It's stay-at-home moms who are probably tired and they got kids, and so we're going to do a commercial aimed towards them. This makes sense. But when you're on there, what they want is screen time. They need you looking at this screen. They need you Googling through it. And so what they do is they feed you back the thing that you're going to look. Hey, look, this guy likes spaghetti. Let's give him a little bit more. Hey, try upping the pasta in there. He didn't like that. Okay, down the pasta, turn up the garlic. He liked that. Give him more garlic. Give him more garlic. Throw in some garlic bread. He likes that. He likes that even more. Okay, let's do the bread. Let's get some more carbs in there, right? He likes that. And so what they do literally is they get you addicted. That's the idea. Like even the neuroscientists have shown that the way you look at a computer, the way you're addicted to video game stuff today, has the same neuroprocessing, the same kind of things show up in those CAT scans or whatever, as it does when a person is high on cocaine. Like, so this is digital cocaine. And it's custom made for each one of us. And what makes it worse, and this part I want you to get, is you get it in what you see for information. This is why people actually believe things as ridiculous as like Pizzagate. There's a secret organization where you order a pizza, and if you order it with like pepperoni, what it really means is I want a small man, or I want a small boy, right? It's just ridiculous stuff. Like you can't make up how stupid this is. But because we're addicted, and all we want is that feedback, it feeds us what we like to hear, and when I hear that, it sets it up in such a way that actually seems reasonable to me. So reasonable that one guy actually takes a gun, goes to a pizza place to go shoot up the people and save the kids in the basement at a place that didn't even have a basement. Right? So we need to be mindful that this is what it does. And mostly this is especially baby boomers. Gen Xers as well. This is why we fall for ridiculous frauds. This is why some of the scams that I see are dumb. But you know why people keep sending out the emails that you won the lottery in Malaysia? Because people keep falling for it. Because they're information illiterate. They believe the things that they see on the computer. This is confirmation bias at its worst, and it's destroying our churches today. And so before we can have any conversation about Israel, about Jerusalem, about end times, about anything, we have got to each recognize that we are all affected by this confirmation bias that hasn't just started overnight. It didn't even start with just the internet. We have been applying this into our lives since the day you were born. So that means for someone like Mark, the last 80 years have been... the last 20 years of Mark's life, right, have been confirmation bias. Everything that we do has been confirmation bias in all kinds of different things. We have a huge part of it brought into us, even as a culture, as Americans. So, let's move on. We'll come back to it in a minute. Be humble. 18:2 says, before destruction, one's heart is haughty, but humility goes before honor. We have to be humble. I have to recognize, you know what? I might be wrong. This one's tough for me, but I try to do this. I have to be intentional about it or I won't do it. It is not second nature for me yet, but I'm working on it. I try to walk into every single conversation with the concession that I might be wrong. That's difficult, but I have to do that every time. And so I have to be intentional about it because it's not second nature. For me, it's difficult because my pride is huge. I always assume I'm right. So we have to be humble because before we can learn anything, we have to be humble. It says in 15, an intelligent mind acquires knowledge and the ear of the wise seeks knowledge. So be eager to learn the truth. Intentionally seek knowledge. And to seek knowledge, if I'm seeking knowledge, what I'm saying is I am looking for something, for facts, skills, awareness, experiences that I don't already have. So when it says the intelligent mind acquires knowledge, it means I'm acquiring something I already have. If I already have it, I'm not acquiring it. It doesn't say go out there and affirm the knowledge you already have. It says acquire knowledge. Get something new. If you're not learning something new that challenges you, you're not acquiring knowledge. And the intelligent mind acquires knowledge. The ear of the wise seeks knowledge. I'm looking for something I didn't know. I'm looking for something that challenges my thoughts. I'm looking for something that challenges what I say. This is why I tell you guys often, ask questions, do that, challenge me. And that way it'll challenge you because my goal when we leave isn't that we leave here going, oh, I figured it all out. It's that we going, okay, this challenges what I'm doing. I need to think about it and do more about it. Someone said something to me that I really love and I really want to kind of live into it. But this lady I used to go to our church in Los Alamos, she said, Pastor, I hope you don't take this the wrong way, but your sermons I call wedgie sermons. Like, wedgie sermon? Like, okay, I'm going to ask and I'm going to regret it. What is a wedgie sermon? She says, well, you know, a wedgie, it's one of those things that makes you really uncomfortable about everything, but you can't do anything else in life until you deal with it. Like, all right, I like that. Yeah, I'm going to give wedgie sermons. So my goal is to give y'all wedgies every single time I meet you. Ugh! Atomic wedgies. I got to tell you, one time me and my brother Ray, we lived together at my dad's house. So I got to share the story. And we shared a bedroom. And I was probably like 17. And he woke up before me and I was asleep. And I was wearing my whitey tighties. And he did what any good brother would do when he saw me sleeping on Saturday morning. He jumped on my back, grabbed him, pulled him so hard, ripped the elastic, and pulled it over my head. Dude, I ran through the house chasing him, and I looked like a 1980s wrestlers with this band right there, whitey tighties hanging. I'm going to whoop you. It was awesome. I'm still proud of him for that. That was one of the greatest wedgies ever. Okay. You got to give props where props is due, right? I was the victim, but well played, Ray. Well played. Okay. Eager to learn the truth. In other words, we don't seek affirmation. I'm not looking for something that affirms, and it's okay if it does. I'm looking for something that I don't already have, and either challenges what I have or strengthens what I have. And it's okay for either of those things to happen. In fact, if I leave a conversation with somebody and it completely changes what I believed about something, I shouldn't walk away feeling defeated, which is kind of what our world says. Well, if you lose that conversation, you're defeated. I should celebrate. I learned something new. I'm a better person because of that. Yeah, and that's okay. Hey, I need to check on this. I think I'm right, but I might be wrong. Help me out here. And that's fine. Like, we should be there a lot of the time. I feel like I'm right about this, but kind of help me make sure that I am because I don't want to mess this up. Like, I feel like I'm right and that I want to go in there and go smack Kyle around because, it feels better. And then Mark will be like, no, you can't do that. Apparently it's illegal now. I'm like, oh, man, right? Like, those kind of things. Yeah, absolutely. And it is one of those things I think that for most of us is not second nature. But again, we should be intentional about saying, hey, when I go in there with this, how do I rephrase this? So I'm not saying, here's why I'm right and you're wrong, but rather, here's what I believe, but I could be wrong, help me out with it, one way or the other, right? I'm okay with hearing one way or the other. And it postures us differently, right? Because if I go in there saying, I'm right and you're wrong, what's going to happen? I mean, yeah, it's not going to happen. I mean, just consider the married couple. If a married couple comes together and they take the posture right away, one says, I'm right and you're wrong, and says, I'm right and you're wrong, where's that probably going to go? It's never going to get resolved, is it? You have to take the posture saying, you know what? Here's what I think. I could be wrong. I mean, I've only been wrong like twice in my whole life, but there's always three, right? So what's up? At least take that posture to some degree. And it requires a sense of humility and a desire to do that. Be aware of the illusory truth effect, the tendency to believe false information to be correct after repeated exposure. Someone says something long enough, we start to believe it. Well, I saw Pizzagate everywhere. So? It doesn't make it right. Yeah, but I saw it here, and I saw it there, 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 and I saw it there. I know. I grew up in the 80s. You know what I saw everywhere? The sex is wonderful outside of a marriage. Does that mean it's right? No. Do you know how many times you are exposed to sexual innuendo every single day, just in your average day? Does that mean it's right? Of course not. And we have to understand that about even the other things that we believe. Just because I see it in a bunch of places doesn't mean it's right. Okay, so if you get a chance, watch The Social Dilemma. The next one is ask questions. Verse 17 says, the one who first states a case seems right until the other comes and cross-examines. So have you ever done this? Someone tells you a story like, oh yeah, that's right. And then someone tells you something like, oh yeah, that's right. And you're like, oh, right. So we do this. When someone says something to you, recognize, look, I heard this, it makes sense, it sounds right. Whatever you usually hear the first time makes sense to you because they brought something to you and they filled up gaps that you have. And we want, all of us desire to have gaps of ignorance filled with something. And so that comes, we like it. But then we need to ask questions. Okay, hey, you have this. Let me kind of ask some questions about it for clarification, to challenge, to push it back. Let me start looking at it from different perspectives and even play the devil's advocate in this and just kind of talk me through this and work through this. One of the things that annoys people, and I think annoys you guys a lot too, is I'm an open processor. Right? Like I process as we go. So I'll be talking to Mark about something. Instead of coming and asking a question, I'll be like, oh, okay. And then I'll just start processing and going through this whole thing. I'm like, hold on, just process. I literally did this to Chris the other day, all the way to Sacramento, the poor dude. I'm like, okay, well maybe this. And I probably changed my mind and my direction like 100 times in that trip, huh? Like I was everywhere. And it's not because I'm doing this. It's because I process, but I process out loud. Right? And so I'm trying, we all process. But process things. Take your time to work through different things. Ask questions because we're always convinced until we're challenged. And concession is good. Concede that this is a good thing. I want to be challenged. I want people to change the way I view. I want to see a new truth because that means I'm growing. And then finally, give yourself time to reflect. This one is probably my worst. If one gives an answer before hearing, it is folly and shame. If I'm hearing something, it doesn't mean I heard it. Now let me go back. Because if I spit back, as soon as someone says, Mark says something to me, and I fire back right away, I didn't hear him. I'm just protecting my walls. To hear Mark, I'd be like, I'm going to take some time with that. I'll get back to you. But that's hard to do when we're in an argument, right? Because in an argument, our emotions try to hijack us and get us going. Online, same thing. Think about when you get into a conversation online, someone posts something, I got to go back right away. I want to get on there, right? I need to get on there as fast as I can. Stop. Take time. When I have conversations with people and I know there's issues like in the church, I'll tell them, I'll sit down and say, hey, we're going to do this, but here's how it's going to happen. We'll have this conversation and we're going to take like a day break or two between each question. I won't respond to you. You don't respond to me. We need to take at least a day, maybe more, to really have time first off to make sure that we're not hijacked emotionally, but to pray about it and think about it and reflect upon what's being said. Listen and consider before responding. But our world is more about quick wit than careful thought, right? Oh, dude, what a burn. That was awesome. I wish I could be as fast as you are. Why? Relax. Slow. Slow and steady wins the race, right? Like, let me just think about what's being said. Let me contemplate it, and let me get back to you. How many times do we say that? It's not very common anymore, is it?